Okay, today is March 28th, 2020, and this is video number 7 on coronavirus pandemic Terminator series. And we are going to pick up with slide number 23. And this was basically a slide we have already gone over in the last video that shows that even if you have a 0.01% error rate in that 1940s model of cough droplets, that can still lead to hugely indoor contamination of air. And if the indoor contamination is with lethal viral particles like coronavirus, that can be a huge disaster. And we are obviously living through that coronavirus pandemic right now. And this is essentially a recap of the same thing. With that 0.01% or 10% of, what about those 0.01 to 10% of those droplets that decide to float for a while, as opposed to just settling in front of the person who's coughing or sneezing, and all indoor air becomes contaminated. And we don't know for sure if these viral particles can survive in the indoor air ducts for a while. And just imagine if the indoor air ducts become contaminated and they keep recirculating the contaminated air, this can become a huge disaster. And I'm not saying at this point that air ducts do become contaminated. Again, I want to re-emphasize, at this point, there is no scientific evidence that shows that indoor air ducts can become contaminated with contaminated air viral particles. But that certainly remains a theoretical concern. And air currents coming from the vents probably and can do provide enough air currents to keep those lighter viral particles in the 5-10 micron range to stay afloat. And what are these viral particles? Well, these are lethal viral particles that have already killed more than 15,000 people worldwide as of March 24th, 2020 from the coronavirus pandemic. So this is not a small issue, this is a huge issue. And when we talk contaminated air particles, some of you might have difficulty imagining air particles or viral particles contaminated air, but think of it in terms of a room air that was filled with cyanide, sulfur dioxide, or nitrous oxide, or carbon monoxide. And we were encouraging people to keep 6 feet distance and wash hands. And would that really be helpful? You really need a system to filter that contaminated air, and that's part of the thing I'm edging towards as the presentation goes further. And we're going to talk a little bit of a virology for the novice, people who don't have medical or scientific or microbiological background. And I'm going to use the picture of a room. Actually, this is a picture of our own family room. It's going to show bricks on a chimney, a TV, a sofa, coffee table, remote control. And each of these items have a useful role in making the room fulfill its necessary obligation. And in this particular room's case, the obligation of a family room. The family room is the place in our house where we all sit as a family, occasionally watch TV or play games. And the sofa has obviously the role of letting us sit comfortably, and the TV has the role of providing us entertainment, and there's a coffee table. And then there is the fireplace, the chimney, and the fireplace devices. And if you could, in your mind's eye, fit this entire room, miniaturize in your mind's eye into the size of a brick. So that would be the inside of a cell. So just think that inside a cell, there are these various components. Each one of them has its own useful role. And each of these bricks are self-sustained room or a cell. So just imagine that each of these bricks has actually is a living cell, and these bricks are stacked on top of each other and side of each other to make a building or a wall. Same way the cells in our body are stacked next to each other to form various organs, skin organ, for example, integumentary system, heart, lungs, brain, etc. And let's take the TV remotes inside a cell. So just like in that family room pictures that I'm going to show you in a minute, there are various components, sofa, coffee table, etc., but there are TV and TV remotes. And there are different colored knobs that are sticking out of the TV remotes, and we would call those TV remote knobs as antigens, or various protein properties that are used to open the locks on a cell. And remember, in this picture, in this imaginary picture, we're using the brick as a cell. So just think that the TV remote actually has all these knobs on it that act as a perfect key to open a perfect lock. So think of this as a lock and key mechanism. And viruses are the original subcellular particles. So what I mean by that is, just like in that example of our family room, there are various components. There are sofas and recliners and coffee tables. So we would call these sub-room furnitures. That means a furniture that fits within a room. Same way, within the cell, there are various components. There is the replicating machinery, the DNA, RNA, etc., the nucleus. And then there are various protein structures that transport things from the nucleus to the wall of the cell. And then there are intermediary transporters, and there are receptors or locks outside the cells. And those knobs on a remote have spikes, just like the spikes on a coronavirus. And those spikes are the ones that open the locks and get inside the cell or inside the family room or the brick we use. And you guys have all heard the term H1H1, H1N1. H stands for hemagglutinin and N stands for neuraminidase. And these are just technical words, but these just imply different keys or are protein structures on top of a virus, which the virus uses to settle down on the cells in our nasal passages inside our lungs. And once these H1N1 become H1N2 or N1 H2, etc., these are just different mutations or changes on the knobs on those TV remotes. And think of remotes dating back to 1970s. I remember how big the TV remotes were and how big those knobs were. And think of the remotes of today. How do they compare to the old remotes? The sizes, shapes of the knobs on the remotes have changed. This is a viral evolution in action, but we're using TV remotes, for example. So I'm just going to show you pictures of our family room. This is a picture of a fireplace and a chimney, and bricks around the fireplace. So just imagine these are the parts of inside a room, and also imagine these to be parts inside a cell. This is before, when we started taking this picture, we were vacuuming the floor. I intentionally told them to leave the vacuum cleaner in place, so we could see that some of these things come and go inside the room. Usually you wouldn't have a vacuum cleaner sitting in the middle of the family room, but since there is this door, it can come and go. And same way the viruses can come and go from one room to the other. And this again is a TV, which is a component in the room. And same way inside ourselves, there are various components that have their own useful role. This is just a simple picture of the brick wall. And just imagine one of these bricks as a one cell. So if you could shrink the entire room the size of a brick, and then imagine this to be our cell. And somewhere here is these little receptors or locks where those knobs from the uh, remote control or from the virus can open that and get inside. And this again is another angle showing the window and part of the remote control, and of course the TV and the remote controls and the coffee table. And this just is another angle of the sofa and the coffee table. And this is a different set of the part of the sofa, and another side table next to that, and a trash can. And these are all different, and a Kleenex box. excuse me, sorry. These are different components within a room or furnitures that have all well-defined roles. So same way inside a cell, there are various components that have well-defined roles of their own. And this on the coffee table are these books. Again, they have, this is just coincidentally happens to be the Silent Spring of Rachel Carson's, the famous environmental ecology book. Again, these things all have a different role inside a room. So imagine, think of these also along like the components of a cell. So just in your mind's eye, shrink this entire room with its various components to the size of a brick. And in that brick, uh, think that the brick can be opened, and brick has perfect locks, and these remote controls, the knobs on the remote controls, are the perfect keys that the virus possesses to get into the brick. And these knobs, if you remember those remote controls from 1970s, 80s, how big they used to be in size and how big those knobs used to be. So see how these remote controls and their knobs have evolved. Same way the viral particles also continue to mutate and evolve. And I think we are going to go ahead and conclude our virology with this particular slide of remote controls, and we'll pick up from there on. So we're going to conclude. This is tape number or video number 7. And we're going to conclude with slide number 36, and we'll pick up from slide number 37.